welcome to Cupertino Insight. I'm Dorothy Cornelius, the City Clerk of Cupertino, and your host for this program. Tonight the show has a little bit of everything: information, entertainment, excitement, and some local history. Here with me in the studio is Hazel Fretwell with her famous trunk. Hello, Hazel, and welcome to Cupertino Insight. Nice to have you here tonight.
Thank you.
First of all, the obvious question is, what's your trunk about, and can you tell us about some of the things that you have in there?
Well, the trunk was sponsored by the Cupertino Historical Society in order to take to the school children in this district that are studying California and Santa Clara County history. And it is full of artifacts, old tools, household articles, clothes, and so on that the children have never seen.
Would you like to share some of those with us?
All right. One of the things that they have never seen is a butter mold. And the butter mold has a picture at the bottom.
I see. Okay. That's really interesting. I don't know if... There we go. That might be better. Yeah. All right. How was that used, Hazel?
Well, you have to pull this handle out and put the butter inside here, and then they have a dish that exactly fits the mold. And after the butter is put in, it gets this picture that is down inside, and then you plunge it like this, and the butter comes out with the picture on top. Which is very nice, especially for company.
Right.
Yeah. Another thing that children are very interested in are the old-fashioned candles and candle holders. Since we lived up in the Regnart Canyon where there wasn't any electricity, why, we and all the other people up there used candles on the Christmas tree.
Ah, okay. So these are actually Christmas tree candles. And
that's right.
They clipped on?
They clipped on.
Right.
They had this kind that sticks into the branch.
Oh.
And this is another type that went on to the branch. And obviously they could only be used when an adult was present because of the fire danger.
I was going to say, I would think they'd be quite a hazard, especially towards the end of the season when the tree's very dry.
We also have an old iron that's extremely heavy.
I recognize this from one of my grandmothers, yes. Okay.
Those weigh about 4.5 pounds.
That's incredible. It wouldn't even have to be hot. It could just press things from weight.
Yeah, because we all had to use wood-burning stoves, and these were all heated on the wood-burning stoves. This one is a potato masher.
Okay.
And now we have them made of metal, but these were made of hardwood. Another one that the children never can guess what it is, and this is a shoe stretcher. You put it down inside of the small boot.
I love it.
And if you have a tight place, you can stretch the leather, because all shoes in those days were made of leather.
I have some shoes. This might come in handy for, quite frankly.
Right. The men used razor strops and straight razors like this one, which of course are pretty dangerous.
Yes.
And children have no idea that you can sharpen this razor on the strop. These come from England and are made from Sheffield steel. Very, very good razors.
It's a nice handle also.
Yeah, and that is not plastic. This is celluloid, which is the pre-runner of plastic. And evidently, it doesn't break like plastic.
Do you have any idea how old that might be, Hazel?
Approximately 100 years or so.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Another one that the children can never guess is this one.
What is it?
Well, this is called a calf wiener, and whenever I say wiener, they all burst into laughter thinking, you know, of a weenie.
Hot dog is a
But actually, it went into the calf's nose, and this was movable at one time, but it's frozen. But it went into the calf's nose, and then when the calf wanted to nurse the cow, these little prongs down here pushed against the cow, and she'd kick the calf away, and then that weaned the calf from nursing the cow.
Oh my gosh.
And this, incidentally, was found right over here by San Antonio School in the Permanente Creek. And it is way over 100 years old.
I've never
This
heard of
one here.
such a thing.
Well, they still use them in the Midwest, but they're made of plastic.
Oh,
So this is an
okay.
original metal one. There is no metal. The children have never seen a stove lid
Oh.
unless they had cabins in the woods, and this is the lifter.
That's
And
from the old wood-burning
these
stoves.
are from the old wood-burning stoves, right. If you had a wood-burning stove, you needed to get the ashes out. And this shovel is from Gus Williams' home that was over on McClellan Avenue, and it is 100 years old. So these things are all old.
Sure are.
Yeah.
So are these things yours, or do they belong to the Historical Society?
Well,
or
about-
Is it a mixture?
About half of the things are mine, and they will be donated to the museum, which we hope to have eventually. And I tell the children about these things because this is what they brought across the plains in the covered wagons. You wouldn't bring good dishes,
No.
and if you did, most of them were broken. You couldn't have the weight, for one thing.
That's metal.
We call this enamel.
Enamel, okay.
And they have an enamel bowl, an enamel cup, and a funnel.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
a funnel, yeah. Well, they wanted to fill their little barrels on the side of the wagons, then you could use your funnel. So it was useful. This, they all know what it is, but they don't know that this is the original school bell from San Antonio School down here in Permanente Creek.
Kidding. How neat.
And that school was built about 1867, I think, somewhere around there. It was only a one-room school. And sometimes when the teacher would come out on the porch to ring the boys and girls in, if it was a warm day, the windows in the back of the school would be open. So one day, she stayed a few minutes longer on the porch talking to the girls, and when she went inside, there were no boys there. They had walked right through the building, out through the window, and gone on the other side.
They weren't so dumb. Okay.
They're always interested in the old-fashioned curler.
The old curling iron.
Right.
Yes.
And the interesting thing about this, when you talk about it, is that there's no thermostat, and so when the girls let it get too hot, you could burn your hair and it would fall right out. So that's the reason. We also would ask them, well, how would you plug it in? And usually some enterprising third or fourth grader would eventually figure out that you unscrewed the light globe and you put it in there.
So it went where the light bulb goes.
Right, because they didn't have any plug-ins.
Good.
There was nothing like that. Really old.
Some things are easier now than they used to be.
Right, yeah. This was used for pulling the ashes and the soot out of the wood-burning stove ovens.
all right.
So you had to have a long handle to clean them.
Hazel, you have many things that are old, and it's very obvious that what you're wearing is not something you just ran down to the local department store and picked up over the weekend. Could you describe your
No,
dress and
that-
its accessories to us?
That's right. You don't go down and pick it up. You pay $7.50 for a pattern, for one thing. And these were what they called morning wrappers, like you would use a house coat now. This was a house coat. It has 13 buttons, 2, 4, down here. And then underneath is another part like corset cover, which children don't understand. You have to explain. So I start unbuttoning and they'll, oh, it's got other things underneath. And so you see that. And this is around 1908. This was what they used. And they did wear dark material, dark clothes, because obviously if you wore something real light, you'd have a lot to wash because there's a lot of yardage.
That's true.
Right.
Yes. Yeah.
And the bonnet was what they used if they went out in the sun. And this buttons on the side so that you can open up the whole thing to iron it. Inside it has stiffeners. These are plastic. The old days they made these with cardboard.
Those would be like collar stays.
Yeah, just
yes,
about.
Yes.
But very convenient to have out in the sun.
And your necklace is really
And
attractive.
The necklace was made of rose petals, which was something they did in those days. I don't know how they did it, but they're very valuable and they're very old. But you dried the petals and you had a certain chemicals and things you put with them, and ran a needle through to make the holes.
That's very
Rose petals.
Interesting, because it's amazing it can last all these years.
It's very hard.
Yeah,
It's
thank
very
you.
hard.
It is hard as a rock. Hazel, if someone wanted to get in touch with you to put on your presentation regarding the trunk, how would they do so?
Well, they could call the president of the Cupertino Historical Society, and probably they could call you.
That's true, yes. City, I want to thank you very much for coming here today and sharing all of this with us. I really appreciate it.
Well, you're very welcome, and the children really love it.
Well, I did too, quite frankly, and I'm sure everyone else did. Thank you. Last week, we spent some time with a daring young men just down the street from us in Cupertino, the firefighters from the Cupertino Station.
There is a numbering system. Each length of hose is numbered, and this assists them in when they do lay a line or lay a hose line, they can look on the hose number and estimate how many lengths of hose or how many feet has been laid, so then they can set their pump up so they can operate at a safe level at the nozzle. Because you've operated at a high pressure at the nozzle, it's dangerous to the firefighters, and it's not effective. It won't be effective firefighting. It's important that our apparatus look good at all times. Keeping it clean and waxed and shiny, that's part of the public image. We want a good public image. We want the public to feel that they're getting a professional level of service. Fire suppression level, the service is inspections, fire prevention inspections, where we actually go out to the business, talk to the business owner, and make him aware of any deficiencies that may be at his place of business. That's a service that we provide. On the public education end of it is visiting the schools, handing out pamphlets, educating the children about the hazards of fires and the common fire hazards that they may come across. Inspecting homes or hazards in the home, that's on-call basis. In other words, the citizen would have to call in to request that. We don't go door to door with it. We do hand out phone stickers so that people are aware of the emergency phone numbers. Of course, that hopefully is going to change by the end of July. Everything is going to be 911. It'll make it nice and simple. But right now, there is a different number to call for fire emergencies. Something the public probably isn't aware of is we provide the public service type of calls with our engine companies. If someone falls out of bed, an invalid, someone that needs help, there's nobody else they can call. The police department is usually too busy. The ambulance service won't come out without charging them. The fire service comes out, we put the person back in bed and take care of that. If they're locked out of their home and they got a pot on the stove, we come out, we get into their home for them so their house doesn't catch on fire and that type of thing. We have trained individuals that know the area. I have to rely on captains and firefighters to know their area. Obviously, they know it better than I do. I can't, I have 8 fire stations to manage in the district. So I don't know all the little ins and outs and all the little roads, the fire roads, or the little alleyways and so forth behind a building that they would know, because they're on the pre-fire plans. They're out checking, they're out on their fire inspections, they're out doing hydrants, and just driving the streets, becoming familiar with their streets in their area. So I rely on them. So it's very important to have these trained key personnel in your fire stations.
There are many exciting things going on with Central Fire. In fact, we're planning more programs with safety tips, information about the volunteer program, and much, much more. My next guest is Sally Brennan, Director of the Cupertino Community Services. This is a nonprofit agency linking people with the services they need. Sally, welcome to Cupertino Insight.
Thank you.
Tell me about the needs assessment that you're currently conducting.
Well, we just began, and it's going to cover all of Cupertino in different ways. we have some volunteers who are doing a random sampling of the telephone book, and they're administering that portion of the survey. They have 16 questions that they will be asking residents who wish to answer. The first part of the survey will be just regular demographic types of questions, like how long have you lived in Cupertino? If you wish, you can say how old you are, as education level, things of that nature. And then we'll have questions that pertain to what they perceive as the issues in Cupertino and whether or not they feel these issues are being adequately addressed. And then we have another very complex question that asks if they know where to find resources for particular needs. And this is for two reasons. One is to raise our awareness about how sophisticated our population is and how many resources they are aware of, so that if they aren't, then we can make them aware of the resources that they don't know about. And the other is to let them know that there are places where they can get that information. We are an information and referral service, so naturally we want them to know that we're there so that they'll use us.
Right. What prompted you to make this kind of an assessment?
Well, the only way that we know what the needs are by the calls that come in, by the agencies that we service and help. And we felt that we wanted to hear from the citizens themselves. We feel that there are big changes happening in Cupertino about the type of people who are living here. And so we feel that their needs may be changing. And in order for us to do our job, to answer the questions that they need to have answered, we need to know what questions they have. And so that's why we're doing it. The other reason is to find out what resources are here. Cupertino has a lot more industries, a lot more businesses than they used to. And I'm talking too fast.
No, you're not.
Okay. And what we want to do is call on them, find out what they feel their corporate or business responsibility is to the community, what resources they have that they can share with the people of the community, and also if they have employees who are Cupertino residents, how we can better meet those needs and just bring them together. And then we are going to be talking to the service providers. That would be like the Parks and Recreation, the library, the senior center, the people who provide the service, human services to the citizens, and find out what their perceptions are. We're going to be talking to the media and find out what they feel Cupertino's overall look is, and what they think the strengths are, and where they see that there might need to be some changes, because we feel that the media has a broader view rather than a focused view, as the service providers would have the focused view. We'll be talking to the city officers and the commissioners that are volunteers for our city, and seeing what their perceptions are, and they will have particular information to give us about their areas of interest. And we did do a youth survey. We had some of the young people question 20 of their peers with 5 questions about youth needs, and that was really interesting. We had one young woman who had her needs met by giving the survey. She got to meet the foxiest boys in school by administering the survey.
Good use of a survey, right?
Yes, for her anyway. That was very interesting. And we will be questioning some of the people who come through our doors. We give emergency assistance. We're a Salvation Army Extension unit, and also have work with the churches, and we're able to give food vouchers or gasoline vouchers, or help with the PG&E REACH program. Mm-hmm. And so these people ordinarily don't have phones, and since the main survey is being administered to phone people, or people who have phones, right, we wouldn't want to leave the other people out, and so we'll be doing that part of it ourselves as people come through.
Sally, basically with information referral services and the kinds of things you've talked about, there's a tendency to think of low-income people or seniors only. Mm-hmm. What about other people? Are your services also available to others?
Oh, I would hope so. We get calls that are very varied, and some of them are very complex and some are simple. We get a lot of calls for the De Anza Recycling Center, because we are their answering service, so to speak, finding out when the hours are, what they recycle. I know where all the tennis courts are in Cupertino. what hours they are open, and how to get a good tennis court, which is one of the calls that I get occasionally, not frequently, but occasionally. New residents will come into Cupertino, and they'll want to know what's available, how they can get their child involved in soccer or Little League, or what the school, where to call what school, and I help them out with that. I have people who call with landlord problems or tenant problems. We provide seniors with transportation. We have some volunteers, and we can always use more, who drive our seniors to medical appointments, and who do a really good turn and feel good. You know, they get a lot out of it too.
Oh yeah. I'm kind of really interested in something. You said you contacted private businesses as well as nonprofit type organizations. When you contact private businesses, what are the kinds of things that you're looking for from them that they might be able to contribute?
Well, some corporations have conference rooms, they have printing facilities, they have things that they offer their employees that might be able to be open for either the city or community use or for nonprofit use. We have a shortage of meeting places in Cupertino and places to give receptions for weddings, which I know sounds like a very mundane thing, but when you're getting married, it's very important. And we only have a few. And so what I'm going to do is ask them if they have meeting rooms that are available, if they have things that they could share with Human Services, and what types of programs do they have to involve their citizens with Cupertino. And it's interesting to find out what the corporate view is.
I would think it would be, because that's not the kind of thing we usually associate with private enterprise.
Well, they do it, and they're willing to do it. You just have to ask. Mervyn's had a promotional where they gave away Famous Amos cookies in little bags. And the manager of Mervyn's came over. He had 483 4-ounce bags of Famous Amos cookies that he couldn't keep because they didn't have preservatives. They're natural. So he gave them to me to disperse to the community, to nonprofits, and to places that could use them. I had so much fun. I'd call up places like the Sunshine Company of the Y or the Senior Nutrition Site, and I would say, how would you like 100 bags of Famous Amos cookies? I got no refusals.
I would think not.
No, they even came by and picked them up. It was great fun. And so to let them know that I'm in touch with the needs of the community allows them to better serve the community. It makes it work.
Absolutely. I would think that's a very vital role that you're playing.
Yes, and it's a lot of fun too.
It looks like you enjoy it. Are there areas in which you need help?
Yes. Oh, yes. Excellent question. I can use more volunteers to administer the survey. I can use more input. We did put information about the survey in the Courier and in the Cupertino Scene and in the Times Tribune and in the Mercury News, letting Cupertino residents know that if they wanted to have their voices heard or wanted their opinions in this survey, to please call. I've had 4 calls, so I don't know if people didn't see it or if they just haven't called, but I'd be more than happy to have their opinions and to write them down and to count them, and I would love to have some help.
Right. How could someone who wanted to get involved get in touch with you?
If they call me between 12:30 and 4:30 at 255-8033, I'll be more than happy to talk with them, and I also will train them and tell them exactly how it can be done, and they'll be an experienced survey taker.
That's great. I'm sure that when you get the results, it's going to be a real benefit to the community, Sally.
I hope so.
And I'd be very interested in finding out the results.
I plan to let everyone see it.
Great. Thank you very much for being here today.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for watching Cupertino Insight. On our next program, we'll have a tour of Seven Springs Ranch.
Wow.
We'll meet Dorothy Liddon, and there'll be much, much more. Good night.
Charlie, what do you go to this side of the table? Somebody took my plate, news for 5 minutes. MTV for